Digitization provides unique opportunities for engaging audiences with audiovisual heritage, as Johan has just also demonstrated. Because in digital form, films, broadcast materials, and media artworks potentially come within the reach of everyone with a computer and an internet connection. So what I want to do now is discuss a number of recent examples in participatory archiving. And I will focus on the potential of involving the crowd, so everyone who's interested, in various aspects of the archival process. And I will also discuss some conditions for its success. And I want to do that by looking at 3 areas where users can be involved. First, selection and acquisition. Second, preservation. And third, description and reuse. Users can be involved in processes of selection and acquisition by indicating preferences for certain types of content, as well as adding their own. It raises the question of how this involvement of amateur curators matches with the expert knowledge of the professional. A well-known example is the exhibition Click, which was a crowd-curated exhibition at the Brooklyn Museum in New York in 2008, inspired by James Surowiecki's book, The Wisdom of Crowds. And visitors were invited to select new work commissioned from photographers around in an open call on a theme of Brooklyn. And all of these photographs that were sent in were put online and were judged by anyone who wanted to take part. And then in the end, the photographs, the most popular ones, were exhibited in the gallery in the relative ranking of the judges. So the more popular the photo was, the bigger the print they struck from it. The question of how this involvement of amateur curators matches with the expert knowledge of the professionals is hard to answer in this case, in particular because the photographs were solicited in an open call and most of the contributions were not from artists or professional photographers. And also there was no comparison with how, for instance, a museum curator or a critic would evaluate the works. There are other cases where visitors are asked to judge a selection of professional artistic works that a museum considers acquiring or exhibiting, such as the Seattle-based Fry Art Museum's initiative to let visitors like collection items on social media platforms and then present the most popular collection items in an exhibition. But this actually is more about finding new ways to engage your audiences with your collection than it is really about participatory acquisition. In other cases, the aim is to solicit unknown objects, documents, or stories from the general public, so use the crowd to collect new collection items. Example of this is the Europeana roadshows, which aimed to collect documentation and memories of the First World War. Europeana, together with Oxford University, built an online archive of private stories and documents from the First World War. And they organized roadshows, physical events at national libraries where people could come and bring their own diaries, photographs, objects, and have them catalogued, photographed, and uploaded to the archive. And in Ireland, for instance, this was a huge success, with many people contributing all sorts of objects and discussing these with military historians and other experts. In the field of audiovisual archiving, a form of crowd collecting is that of amateur film and video. An example is the Home Movie Day, which is an event held at the end of October, simultaneously in a number of countries, including the Netherlands, USA, Australia, and Japan. And this year in the Netherlands, there were 2 events. One for collecting 8 and 16 millimeter film at the Film Institute, and one at the Netherlands Institute for Sound and Vision for collecting amateur video in the period 1980-2005, so the period of obsolete home video formats. So how participatory are these initiatives exactly? Often the input is integrated in the end in the professional workflow of an institution, as in the case of the World War I material or the Home Movie Days. And in the case of the museums, the aim, as I said, is often more to advance the public engagement with your collection, with the museum's collection, in particular among local communities, in order to legitimize the museum's own role. A good thing about these initiatives is that they help to strengthen collections with unknown contributions by members of the public. And it's also good to acknowledge that there are audiences out there who have their own tastes and opinions, and to take that seriously. And these initiatives only work really in practice when you take those tastes and preferences really into account. On the other hand, it does not mean that we can outsource acquisition to the crowd. Some curatorial decision-making is always needed, since the expert curator knows how to recognize value of an object in the context of the broader collection. And that is not to say that amateurs cannot themselves be expert curators, but I'll come to that in the second part. This role of expert curating is also relevant with regards to outsourcing acquisition to machines, in the case of the web crawlers of the Internet Archive. An example is the archiving of a blog post by the Russian rebel military commander in the East Ukraine, Igor Strelkov, in which he bragged about the shooting of the MH17 flight. And this blog post, that may prove to be a crucial piece of evidence in finding out what happened there exactly, was missed by the crawlers of the Internet Archive, but in the end saved by expert curating. As Bert Laserchek wrote on The Signal, the Library of Congress blog post on digital preservation, almost everything on the crash and the Ukraine conflict represented in the Wayback Machines represents deliberate curatorial decisions on the part of individuals and institutions. And in this case, it was a curator at the Hoover Institution Library and Archives with a special interest in the V-Contacte Strelkov blog, who actually added it to the archived collection. And as Laserchek concludes, it's clear that subject area experts play a vital role in focusing web archiving efforts, and, in this case, facilitated the preservation of a vital document that would otherwise not have been archived. At the same time, I think this example demonstrates the potential of participatory archiving. If people with certain niche interests also collect, we can save more. And as John Ippolito argued yesterday with reference to the emulation of games, we can also do it in better ways, more sustainable ways. That brings me to the second part of my talk, preservation. Online communities can also be involved in preserving complex interactive media or niche productions that can otherwise not be preserved, such as net-based artworks, online games, or obscure film genres. And there, the challenge is to balance the standards and ethics of professional conservation against the motivation and self-designed practices of amateurs. And as I argued, of course, we can also turn that around, that we have to think more like the way amateurs do. As we also heard yesterday, in the world of gaming, there are entire networks of gamers that maintain the functionality of a game. Also, for instance, in the case of massively multiplayer online role-playing games, such as World of Warcraft, around which whole fan communities develop. And in particular, relevant are player-created game modifications, mods or add-ons, that are maintained by the communities of players themselves. Or the phenomenon of shards, whereby players create their own personal copies of games, sometimes as it was before the release of a new expansion pack, so circumventing the planned obsolescence. And as Megan Wingett has pointed out, this is not really a legal strategy, so it's not maybe useful for preservation in an official context. But it does ensure that the game survives, and it also helps to sustain the memory of the gaming experience, which, as Dragan Espenschied pointed out yesterday, should be the whole purpose of the archiving enterprise. So rather than focusing on a detailed documentation of the user context by the institution, we could perhaps also consider delegating part of the responsibility for long-term preservation to the community itself. And to see what that could mean, I first look at audience participation in the maintenance of Martine Nedam's net artwork Mouchette. Mouchette is an interactive website created by a character with a pseudonym. And she's an Amsterdam-based artist who calls herself Mouchette. And it appears to be the personal website of a prepubescent female artist. And it starts out innocent enough, but when going deeper into the website, she addresses darker themes such as sexuality and suicide. For a long time, the creator of the website has been kept a closely guarded secret. At first, it was the taboo subjects of the site that generated heated debates. Later, however, the manipulation of cyber identity and the ability of the creator to maintain anonymous for so long were significant reasons why this website has received ongoing attention in the internet art community. Around it emerged a circle of fans who actively contribute content to the site. They send emails in response to things on the site, texts on the site, that the artist then reviews and works into the site. They also help sustaining the website, amongst others by uploading a specific page that Nedam had removed because of a court case. So people took the film quiz. It concerned the page film quiz, where the cyber Mouchette could be compared to the character in a Bresson film, after which she was named. And the widow of Bresson filed a court case against the artist in order to prevent her. She had to take down all this film-related material. And then the fans took the site and uploaded it in various places on the web. And the artist herself also created an About Mouchette page, where she gathers everything that has been published about Mouchette on the web, which is a very nice resource for reconstructing the context of the work, how the work is perceived. Another example of do-it-yourself preservation is Cinemageddon, a peer-to-peer file-sharing network using the BitTorrent protocol devoted to obscure film genres that fall outside the scope of official film archiving institutions. One of our students, Torbjörn Pedersen, investigated this platform from the perspective of archiving, so how it functions to collect and preserve this kind of material. And he had to have an insider perspective because this is a private torrent, so you have to be a member yourself. He argues that these kinds of platforms again make collectible moving image material which, through legal distribution platforms such as YouTube, Vimeo, Netflix, etc., are only temporarily available through streaming. So in a way, we can no longer collect video, online video and music because it's only provided, it's not given to us. Even if you buy a song in iTunes, you don't own it, right? Interesting to me is that you can see this entirely fan-based platform, that it has developed several aspects of professional archiving. First, First, it's a closed community. It's a private torrent tracker, so membership is only by invitation. So the expertise that is required is sort of selected by the members themselves. It has very strict rules about what can and what, in particular, about what cannot be uploaded. So any popular content is off. It should be rare, obscure, and terrible. And that is clear from their mission statement. So they have a policy, they have a collecting policy. And it says, Cinemageddon has a very selective taste for movies. The general idea of Cinemageddon is that we will have all bad shoved aside and generally unknown films that nobody else has. Brennan's original idea was a place for hilariously bad movies, but, particularly since that would be even harder to define, the rules have been broadened to include generally rare, low-budget and foreign movies. When in doubt, a title is put up for review by staff members of the Customs and Excise Forum, the panel of expert curators, be it that this is a consensus form of expertise where everybody gets to have their say. And these debates on what can be and cannot be shared are not only a form of curating. These extensive discussions and motivations are a way of authenticating a new addition to the collection. So it's really been judged as fitting with the site's collecting aims. Besides debating content, members are also strongly focused on the technical quality of their versions of the film they upload, such as having a higher quality than is available on public trackers, or featuring interesting extras, having the original frame rate, and stuff like that. So in this sense, the members are also interested in the material aspects of the films, which, virtual or not, can even acquire a form of patina, because they refer to aspects of the original material collectible, such as the DVD version, for instance. And in this sense, they contribute to preserving the material in the best available format. Okay, third, I come to crowdsourcing in the area of description. Institutions may collaborate with various user groups in increasing the scope and effectiveness of reuse, from crowdsourcing projects for description to improve the metadata, to involving potential users in the design and development of access platforms. And I wanted to show you a little bit of a project I recently did, modeling crowdsourcing for cultural heritage. And I'll be brief because of time. What we wanted to know is, when is a crowdsourcing project successful? What are the conditions for engaging with the crowd in a way that gives you results that are useful and that do justice to this form of participation? And we looked at two recent photo tagging projects. And in the end, we developed a tool which had the form of a questionnaire for institutions planning such a project that would help them to make decisions on how to design effective projects. As I said, we looked at two photo tagging projects, and both were in an archival context. The first was Red een Portret, Save a Portrait. It concerned a photo collection from the interwar years in Amsterdam and from an Amsterdam photo studio, featuring a lot of people, both known and unknown ones, 40,000 glass negatives that were digitized and put online for people to help describe them, so that you can search them now by clothing items, physical traits and accessories. And the other project was hosted on a dedicated crowdsourcing platform, Many Hands. So it's a pun on the saying that many hands make light work in Dutch. And that was by the Maria Austria Institute. And I'm just going to summarize it. What was very interesting for us was that the Save a Portrait was very successful in attracting contributions. So over 40 weeks, there were 8,000 contributions by 376 users. So if you look at how many staff hours that equates, then you gain a lot of labor in a way. And people really enjoyed engaging with the material. With Maria Austria, it was a bit different because this is a professional photo collection of very beautiful, well-known photographers. And what they wanted was also to make it better searchable, but in the end with the aim of being able to sell the photographs, to sell them through an online platform. And here what you saw was that a discussion emerged about them employing volunteers for commercial purposes. It's not a commercial company, of course, but you see how tricky it is that when you shouldn't consider people as voluntary laborers. So what we did in the end is we came up with a list of misconceptions. So I listed only a few, not all 10, but this is the preamble to our model. So before starting to fill out the questionnaire, an institution has to take notice of the 10 misconceptions about crowdsourcing. So first, that the main beneficiary of a crowdsourcing project is the institution. It is not. It is the crowd and the pleasure it gets out of its engagement with the collection. The second misconception is that the crowd is inaccurate, that they are prone to error, as someone put it. A third is that project accuracy is most important. It is not, because if you have a huge number of contributions, you can filter out the really strange ones and the wrong ones. Crowdsourcing is also not about advanced volunteering, the Maria Austria example. It is also not only for popular content, because there are people, on that Many Hands platform, there was very obscure things, such as the Natural History Museum having glass preparates of insects, and they had these tiny handwritten descriptions, and people spent hours typing in these tiny handwritten descriptions of these insect names in Latin. And people also think, let's learn by doing. We will just get started. No, by now there's a whole body of knowledge and experience in many archives and other institutions, so let's learn from each other. So my time is up. I thank you for your attention.